and her world premiere.
Thank you.
That's great. So tell us about you. You're from Vienna?
I'm German, but I've been living in Vienna for the past 15 years and working for a while now at Terramata Studios. So I'm a film producer, but this is my directorial debut.
And how did this come about? Are you an environmentalist? Do you have a prior...
I do.
Tell us.
Well, in my youth, I was very much active.
In your youth?
In my youth, yes. No, I was an environmental activist, including like animal liberation, stuff like that. I'm not going to go into it too much. And yes, I'm a vegan. That proved to be a little bit difficult in the far Russian East, but I managed. And I've come across this topic. Of course, I watched Blackfish. And then I thought, okay, well, everything's done, great, let's move on. But then I've seen in Al Jazeera, there was a report, 101 East and Caging the Oceans Wild, and that was an inside investigation into the Chinese marine parks. And that led me to investigate further and discover that Russia is actually supplying wild-caught orca whales to China.
Wow. And so how did you have to convince your superiors to make this film? Did you have to do it on the outside? How did it happen?
There wasn't much convincing. So we do a lot of environmental impact films. Our CEO was even a little bit disappointed that I even got access. He was like, "Oh, that's boring. They invited you in, you know." I was expecting, much more drama. Of course, it was hard to get in. No question about that. But no, the company really supported it. And yeah, I do hope you're the very first people to see it and that the film travels and to spread the word, yeah.
That's great. How long did it take to make?
5 years. That seems to be the magical number here.
Gee, it sounds
5
like
years.
Sounds like a documentary. Why? Tell us about the process. Was it about access and?
Yeah, the pandemic played its part. And of course, in Russia and in China especially, it was very, very hard to film there during the pandemic. And the film really tells the story. So initially, we really did not have access and we're following these transports. There were 4 transports in total of the animals to be released from the whale jail back into the waters where they got caught. And in the beginning, we really followed Evgeny, as you've seen, in the bushes. And, we're trying to figure out what was going on because there was somewhat of a conspiracy. It was a lot of money involved. And one orca whale, as you've seen, costs about $10 million on the market. And one of those beluga whales went for $400,000. So it is literally a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so the conspiracy was that since the catchers themselves got tasked with the release of the animals, then nobody was allowed to follow, also not us initially, that they would just hand off these animals, at the border to China and to fulfill the contracts that they already got a down payment for. So the catchers themselves were also in a little bit of trouble. But then, through a mysterious access person, we got connected to the catchers. And because they really opened up, which was a surprise for me as well, right? And German, who you've seen, the junior manager of the whale jail, he initially tried to do some good publicity for the whale jail. There was an Instagram for the whale jail about like happy orcas, happy beluga whales. And so they really didn't get it. Yes, exactly. That backfired. And so they've seen with me, kind of a chance to step in front of the cameras and kind of tell their side of a story, what moved them, why did they go into catching and so forth.
Have they seen it?
The catchers, no. Bronikov
whale jail owners, have they seen it?
The whale jail owner, he had a heart attack last year and died on a plane. And so no, they haven't seen it, but of course all the activists and everybody who helped bring this together, they have been involved equitably during the edit, and yeah, they've seen the final result.
Yeah. The animation and the graphics at the beginning were really beautiful. How did that come about? You went from a very straight film to this very lyrical, beautiful piece.
Thank you. Yeah, so this opening graphic, basically, it was pretty hard to tell and to connect how this is what we're seeing now, what was going on in Russia and in China, really translates back to SeaWorld and the US, and this is where the origins are of this marine mammal entertainment business, actually. So the idea was, not to, kind of double down on Blackfish and recap that. I can highly recommend, who hasn't seen Blackfish, please go ahead and watch it. So that will provide you with all the information about the plight of the animals in these concrete tanks and how much they're suffering in captivity. And so I tried to create this sequence about a very short and brief history about the catches that actually led us here to Russia.
Great. Any questions out there? Yes, hold on a second. Wait, there's somebody close here. Throw that mic over there.
So I lost track a bit of how far they actually went from the whale jail to their point of home. Mm-hmm. But how did they get from home to the whale jail? I mean, it was a long, laborious process to get them back home. So how did they get transported to the whale jail in the first place?
After they were captured.
Yes, exactly.
So it was just reverse, basically. So what we've seen, it was roughly 1,200 miles.
Yeah.
So from the Sea of Okhotsk, they caught them there with these little dinghies, with these makeshift boats. And then they got put onto these trucks in the containers, shipped on these gravel roads, and then loaded onto the barge across the Amur River until they ended up in the whale jail in the far east, south of Russia, where they got kind of adapted to a life into Chinese aquariums, where luckily they did not end up in.
Someone else?
Well, I have a personal question. What keeps you motivated? Because you're saying 5 years, like 5 years is nothing. And I think that really now your real work has started where you have to market the movie and get it out there. So what inspires you? What keeps you going?
So basically, as I was saying, when Blackfish came out 10 years ago, there were about 53 orcas in captivity, and today it's the same number. So not much changed in between, even though the public attitude towards whales and dolphins in captivity changed massively through Free Willy, through Blackfish, as kind of these landmark films. But still there's so much to be done. And what keeps me motivated is basically the great protagonists you've seen. So Xiao Ran, who in China really turned around her whole life, and the person who gave us this footage of the birth of the very first orca being born in captivity in China, that was quite a risk they took, because these parks are co-owned by the Chinese government. So if you leak information or you are a whistleblower, actually, you're not just being fined, but you can be prosecuted. So the person quit their job and left the country after. And so this trust, basically, that was really bestowed by the protagonists. And also in Russia, this a great group of activists in Sakhalin Island, they have been labeled foreign agents. And same thing goes for Alyona, the journalist. So they suffer also, through governmental persecution, as a sense in Russia, and still, they're avid about the cause. So, guess that keeps me motivated.
Do you know what will happen with the film? I mean, you work for a good company that obviously has contacts around the world. Will they be able to sell it? Are there already plans for it to be, for the few of us that have been able to see it, for others to see it too?
So far, no. We're looking for distribution, and it is an impact-driven film. Although I do know that there is an audience, but I hope that streamers, platform distributors agree as well, and that the film can be out there. But this is still in the works. Yeah.
Great. Well, everybody, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I will tell everybody I know about this film, including social media. Another question?
What about the United States and the orcas in the States? They weren't really covered. I wondered where they came also from the catchers, and what will happen when they die in captivity.
Could you hear in the back?
Yes.
What about the United States and will the orcas die after their captivity?
Yeah, so the orcas in the US initially got caught in the Salish Sea, and then the catchers moved to Iceland after they got banned there from catching wild orca whales. And then they mostly stuck to breeding. So most of the orcas in SeaWorld is still the largest company in the world, holds the most orcas in captivity, are bred. And I think the more important question is what's happening to them now, because SeaWorld's policy is, even though they vowed after this blackfish effect, the backlash after the documentary came out, not to continue breeding these whales. Or they also wanted to phase out the orca shows, which didn't happen very much. But they stuck to the policy not to retire them, because the very humane solution would be for these whales to go to seaside sanctuaries. And there is a sanctuary called the Whale Sanctuary Project that is being built in Nova Scotia, actually. And that would be a very dignified and humane home for these orcas that currently live in the concrete tanks to go to. But SeaWorld's policy is that it's the last generation of orcas, but that they would perish in the tanks, which should change, must change, yes.
Well, your film may help that. One more question. Go ahead.
I've got a question. I'm in the way back. It's a very good film, and I'm wondering about its length. How will school children see it if it's so long? And how will it be shown in church basements and in libraries? Might you consider, of course, this is a first screening, so a very premature question, cutting down on the story and making shorter films?
Well, the film is just 92 minutes, so it's an average length, I would say, for a feature doc. But of course, for educational purposes, very open to, I think, of course, reading the subtitles makes it feel probably a little bit longer than it actually is. Of course, for school children or educational purposes, there would be then a voiced over version that the subject matter is very complex, and the film was, of course, initially way longer, as we all know, making films in the edit and cutting it down. So I think it really holds the story together. But it might be the subtitles, I'm assuming. Yeah.
My experience is that educational distributors do not have an issue with feature films, and they can break up the way that it's shown to school children, and they will make educational materials for them. So I think you'll have a wonderful future. What is your future? Is your company going to let you be the voice of this and bring it around? Because clearly you have the passion and you can help publicize it.
Yes, and I'm very happy that this is basically the kickoff of the film here as a launching pad. And the film is already scheduled for a number of other film festivals in the next year. Yeah, in the US and abroad. So yes, I hope I will be traveling a little bit and spreading the word about orcas in captivity and still what can be done, because there is legislation and you can support it. There is the SWIMS Act that is last year in front of Congress. It was introduced, and that would, from a legislative perspective, really help whales in captivity not be bred and not be used for shows, just like Canada did, for example.
And that's here? The SWIM Act
Yes.
is here?
Yes,
So we
it was
can all
California
support
representative.
that.
Yep.
Great. Sarah Noerenberg. Okay, one more question. Wait a second. Hold your applause. Loud.
What is your next project going to be? Are you staying in this vein? Is this about to be a departure to another?
Did you hear that in the back? What's your next project? This.
Yeah, well, this for a while still. So basically, what I'm concerned with is after this documentary, and we've done a couple of others where people really went undercover, exposing wildlife trafficking and wildlife crime, and we only could go so far with a documentary. And so the next project is actually a wildlife crime series, scripted, called Rogue. And so that is also kind of a look behind the scenes and what's going on there. Yeah, Narcos inspired, and yep.
A force of nature. Get it? Sarah Noerenberg, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations.
Thank you.